The Central Bank of Nigeria has reversed the December deadline of new naira note, and according to the Apex Bank, the Director of Corporate Communications, Mr. AbdulMumin, the Apex Bank said its latest decision is in line with international best practices and to forestall a repeat of earlier experiences. CBN added that it is also working with the relevant authorities to set aside the subsisting court ruling that instituted the December deadline. For more insight now on these, the chief economist at SPM Professionals, Mr. Paul Alaje, joins us now to talk about this. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Alaje. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so very much for having me. Good afternoon.
Okay. Give us your position on these. I mean, the deadline is gone. Now, of course, we have freedom to spend naira, as it were. So give us your update, and what does this mean for Nigeria?
Well, you know that before now, the naira Redesign was announced by the former central bank governor, Mr. Emefiele, and he had mentioned that by January 2023, old naira will not be acceptable again. And we saw the drama that followed. We saw the agitation, and perhaps people lost their life in the process. We saw the drama in different financial institutions as people became stranded. We noticed that most of the commercial banks were not even prepared for the policy, as much as the central bank had boosted the hope of many Nigerians that this was the way to go. When you look at the policy in itself, it was not a bad policy. The timing and the available infrastructure make it to become very weak. Here is it. The central bank is saying that that policy technically has been reversed, which may be tantamount to policy somersault, because some of the things that the central bank hoped to achieve in terms of results, I can tell you, as we speak today, it's not being reversed. We have seen that old naira note now heads to it after the court judgment that gave the freedom till December 2023. Today, unlike what we have started seeing, people that had old naira note, new ones for that matter, they push them back to the economy. Should we say that the little gains we had with the old naira note redesign should be completely thrown away, though? But should we say that we should return to the dark age, where people who want to spend money will go back to banks as early as 6 a.m. only for them to return to see their family 9 p.m. after enduring a long queue, and they are unable to do transfer at the same time? Unfortunately, it was a time where most bank network collapsed because obviously there was no stress test on most of their networks. Today, central bank is saying we should return to our old ways of continuing to spend the old naira notes. As in my opinion, I doubt if that introduction of naira will happen, because central bank is saying that December deadline is no longer there. If you ask me, when is the best time to introduce new currency, I will tell you it's immediately after the election, because we saw that politicians who are perhaps policy makers, who are perhaps decision makers, that you want to control, because most of the dark money that we don't have access to are really with politicians. And those who you may want to call big businesses that are not running legitimate businesses. Now, we have seen that had impact on election. We have seen that we try to stifle election, which is not good. But here is it. Elections are now over. At least the complete cycle election are over. So if government is to introduce, or a central bank is to introduce any policy, this may be the right time. Unfortunately, this is the time we are saying that the policy is not right. This is the time we are saying we want to change the policy. We are reverting back to old. We hope that in the coming period, when the time is not right, is not when we say we want to reintroduce the policy. There is always right time. People say there is no right time for anything. That is completely wrong. You cannot introduce some policies when it is really sensitive. I give you an instance of subsidy removal. People say there is no best time to remove subsidy. There is always a best time. The best time to remove subsidy, for instance, is when you have your local refinery working at that time it becomes a good time. When you do that before removing subsidy, then you are going to be faced with pressure. The same thing with currency redesign. The time we adopted, I spoke with your colleague, Mr. Tolu, over and again over the policy. And I mentioned to him the policy will be tantamount to nothing but failure. Today, we have seen that the policy has failed. Why? Because it was introduced at the wrong time. And the window given to people to exchange their money for those that had cash was too short. The policy became a manipulation of some sort to many who had funds, but they were unable to even use it. There was too much fear in the atmosphere. Election was coming, politicians lent their voices, which of course they may be genuine, they may not be, but that's not the issue. But if you give a longer time and you say you want to capture money supply, because your last guest spoke, some of the things your last guest spoke about is money supply, and that if you have increased money supply, you are bound to have inflation. That is partially correct. I'm not faulting him in any way, but I'm saying that yes, that can be said to be correct, but we also need to look at the driver of inflation in this regard, beyond monetary control, one of which money supply is a determinant.
Well, can we say, or is it right to say this is a total policy reversal? Because according to the statement, the CBN did say that the old Naira note will exist alongside the new Naira note until they fade out completely from circulation. That means that the old Naira note we have to wait for it to fade out, gradually from the system. So, but the concern, therefore, is that there is a need to push out this new Naira note. So, what's your position on that?
I agree with you. What central bank wanted to achieve at that time, and the goal now might have been altered a little. The other time, central bank wanted all monies to go to the banking vaults. That is, they can control what money supply is. Even though central bank painted at that time that what was outside the banking sector was too much. In our opinion, and we made it known, we are not sure that was too much. The velocity of money is what we thought we have issues with. Some persons have kept money and they are not bringing them to the economy. They are not taking them to bank as at when due for this to influence or induce economic growth or provide jobs for other people. So that was what the problem was. Today, with this new circular that have been issued by the central bank, people can literally be taking old notes, taking them out of their monies that they've kept, replacing it with new notes over and over and over again. This could be interpreted for those that don't mean well for our nation. You know, we have a common economic enemy, those who don't want this economy to work. So that is, to a large extent, I would say, some of the things the central bank wanted to achieve from that policy may not really be achieved because of the new dimension that has been brought to this. But to be sincere and to be fair on central bank, I can tell you that people need time. The level of education in Nigeria is very low, is very weak, especially financial education. You can also take a sample. This is not a phone-in program, but you can confirm of all the local government we have, how many of them have at least financial institution presence in all their wards? How many of them do not have? I can tell you, it will surprise you. When I say financial institution, I don't mean having POS operator or money agent operator. I'm speaking to having a near bank or complete bank. It could be microfinance, it could be, small banks, bank branch near them, especially in the rural area. It is really very low. So can I say it's a complete reversal? The truth is that we don't know at what time all this old currency will be withdrawn from circulation, if we want to withdraw them at all. Because as much as one we think by now, old currency will be reducing, what we see is that in the currency we hold in our hands, old currency continue to hold stray from time to time.
I mean, you technically answered my next question. I was going to ask you implications, this decision may have on the overall monetary policy and economic stability in Nigeria, and how the central bank intends to manage, the fallout that may result from this. Do you have more to say on this?
Well, I can tell you that managing it is a different concern, because window that should not be given has now been given, and there is no timeline as to what this may be. So you might still have a lot of money out of the banking sector, according to the central bank, which we don't completely agree with. But you know, some of the things central bank wants to achieve in terms of monitoring, in terms of helping government to determine what are people doing with the currency that government is struggling and paying so much to print. How are they handling the currency, and where is the money going to? Is there any funds going into terrorism financing and so on and so forth? Recent confession by an ex-terrorist, or maybe not, has revealed that unlike what many think, you know, if what is said in the media is anything to go by, that they have special people funding them, which of course could be the truth. But you see, most of the kidnapping going on could also be part of the money that are used to finance this evil act. Perhaps that is why Central Bank feels it's important to collaborate with different security agencies to bring strong policy in place such that we can monitor what is going on, so that when these people of the dark world are asking for ransom or some payment, it will be difficult to get it in cash, and it must be gotten. We can easily monitor and trace who is holding what, when and how.
I mean, the CBN did say that this, of course, will remain a legal tender pending when they, fade out gradually. So, are we looking at how to print more money or more new naira notes, which of course will cost more money, right? Or when do we start seeing more of these in the market? That's a lot of concern. I mean, a concern for many out there that these new notes are not out there for people to access.
Well, there are no sufficient new notes. It is an open knowledge, open truth, that there are no sufficient new notes in circulation. Again, when we say we print money, whether it's new note or old note, what is important to monetary authorities, what is overall money supply? Using M1 and M2, what is the overall money supply? So if you are withdrawing old notes and shredding them, replacing them with new notes, it's a conversation that we need to have. And I think that conversation may not completely be in the public space. It will, of course, be what Dr. Issa, the spokesperson of the central bank, can say, or maybe what they discuss in their committee. But our advice for them is policy direction. It appears that the statement is saying, over time, the old notes will be taken away, the new notes will be in place. And it's also important for us to know when the old note will not be, or suddenly we just see that we can no longer access the old note again, then the new note will enter. So that we don't bring confusion. People may need to know, even if it's a year, if it's 6 months, if it's 2 years, if it's 5 years, so that people will not, especially areas where banking sector is relatively not available. And I can tell you, for so many who may want to confirm this statement, you can go to somewhere in Niger, you can go to somewhere in Kaduna, where and somewhere in Katsina, where a high level of transaction is going on in grains and food output. You can see that most farmers, at least 80% of farmers, who do transaction in hundreds of thousands through the sales of sacks of grain, which includes paddy rice, which includes so many other products apart from paddy. We never accept e-transaction, card payment. It has to be by cash. So if such persons who is transacting predominantly by cash are not really very sure as to what the policy is, then if you say that we're going to leave it at infinitum, it's important for people to be aware and central bank to intensify efforts to make this necessary change. I also must advise that central bank must partner with media agencies, including yours, to make this information beyond just issuing circular, to interpret it in different languages, turn it to drama, let people listen both on radio, television, newspaper, do outdoor advertising for people to know what the central bank policy is saying. Because economy is like snooker. When you take one economic decision, it's like eating the white ball. If yours is black and you pot red, then you are in trouble. In fact, if you pot the black ball before time, you might end the game thinking that that is the ultimate goal. So you need to know what you are doing per time. If not, by eating multiple balls at the same time can take you out of the game, not because you have the victory, but because you have lost.
I'm going to let you go in a moment, but let's talk about this before I let you go. How is business activities likely to react to these developments, seeing that there's no more deadline for withdrawal of this old naira note?
Well, I don't think there will be new response coming from business activity. I think the decision will remain the same. I think status quo as we have it today will remain, because this is the expectation. Many were thinking something may happen by December. I don't think there will be any new thing that will change, or where you see people start queuing up. I don't think all of those will happen. The Nigeria economy now has a lot to bother with, so adding any form of headache to it will make a weak economy to be susceptible to further challenges. So I don't think businesses will respond in any particular. I think we are going to see relative stability in that particular area, and businesses will not respond either more positively or get agitated about any of this in the coming period.
I think this is also important for you to comment on. I mean, inflation rate for the month of October went up, rising from 26% the previous month to 27.33%. Talk to us. Did you see this coming? I mean, because quite a lot of people really didn't know or didn't see that number coming.
Well, many people were expecting even higher inflation. Recall that from the beginning of the year, inflation has started to take liquor. It has taken liquor so much that inflation is now on the high. We thought by the time it gets to the topmost class of cocoa house at 25%, it was going to stop. Unfortunately, inflation has developed wings on the right and on the left. What does that mean? It has developed wings on food inflation side and core inflation side. It's now flying above the roof, flying above our reach, flying above the target. All effort by monetary authority, who seems to be the agency of government to curb inflation by bringing much productive policies, seems not to be available. Today, we have seen that beyond what monetary authority could do, effort is needed by fiscal. And the authority that is least spoken about, the trade authority, need to also get fully involved in tackling inflation. Because of time, what do I think should be done? The Minister of Agriculture of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with the remaining 36 commissioners of agriculture, must come together, draw a roadmap of how they will deliver Nigeria. And I'm saying this, I hope this report will be submitted to President Bola Tinubu on or before last day of June 2024. Come up with a report presented to the president on how Nigeria food supply would increase. What is driving inflation? The driver that occupied the seat that is driving the might of inflation, that have thrown the wing both on the right or the left. Maybe you call it a pilot that is flying inflationary jet that is already on the high, that has lost control, is food inflation. That food inflation is challenged because of food supply. People don't go to their farms as they should because of insecurity on farm and also because of infrastructure. That is weak, and cost of transport as induced by diesel over 1,000 naira. By end year 2020, it was less than 300 naira. Now, November 2023, it is higher than 1,000 naira, 1,100 plus. That is almost 500% of what it was before. How do we rescue the soul of inflation from this high driver of food inflation? It is to boost supply side. My advice to the Minister of Agriculture and the remaining 36 commissioners in different states that are manning agriculture is to think beyond politics, to find how do we boost food supply. My solution, number one, is we need to go into plantation. We have different local government that support some kind of agricultural output. From Plateau State, where you have Irish potato, to Kogi State, have just concluded an election. The new governor-elect with the outgoing governor must discuss how do we make cashew nuts, which of course Kogi has competitive advantage over every other state in Nigeria, to become cash crop, and we also export. And export, we have started discussing trade. The Minister of Trade and Investment is not minister that just sees to SMEs. It's the one that sees our output on our farms and what we're able to produce meets the required standard to export. The commissioners in Osun, in Ogun, and in Oyo, how can we make cocoa available to the rest of the world? How will the state governors partner with their Ministry of Agriculture to say this is what we want the states to be known for? Food inflation in terms of cassava, in terms of rice, in terms of agriculture, we go beyond just throwing money at the problem. The last central bank threw billions of naira. to rise. In fact, we saw the commission.
Yes. I mean, can you hear me now? Okay, so I guess we're out of our time, and I really want to thank you for your time, because we've really behind time. Thank you so much, Mr. Paul Alaje. He's a chief economist at the SPM Professional.
Thank you so much for having me.